Hi guys, welcome to another video. Today I thought I'd do one that's highly requested, and that is sort of my riding story, my riding journey, that kind of video. So I guess I'll just talk through it and then I'll add little photos and videos from what I can find in there as we go along. So anyway, this is my riding story. I've always loved horses, always been the horse crazy one. I've got one sister and she's not really into horses at all, so it was always me. And so I finally convinced my parents to have my first riding lesson in 2005. I had a couple of pony rides and things like that at friends' parties beforehand, but for my actual first riding lesson was in 2005. So I was 5 years old when I had my first lesson. So I started off at a little riding school here in South Australia in Adelaide Hills called Nara, which most people have heard of if you're around here. So sadly, Nara is no longer running, but when I was 5, it was like Pine Hollow. Dad went, when he went to look and suss it all out before I went there, he came back and he said, oh, she'll just love it. It's just like Pine Hollow. So yeah, I was obsessed with Saddle Club, obsessed with just anything horsey, and I finally got my lesson on the little school pony called Comet. So that was my first ever lesson, and I continued to ride at Nara for, oh goodness, I think it was another 4 years, about that time. So I progressed through the ponies there, and progressed through the group that they had quite quickly at Nara, and then they started to have like the day clinics where you'd go and it was like competitions and you got ribbons and stuff. So I got all my first ribbons competing there and doing all the novelties and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that was where I started, and then the owner, she sadly passed away, so Nara closed down. So I then went from Nara to a classical dressage stable. And I trained there for a little bit, and I was about 7 or 8 at this time, and I was riding a big like 16-3, 17 hand schoolmaster, and so I was getting to ride all of the dressage movements, and I wasn't in love with dressage at the time. Obviously I'm a dressage rider now, but I wasn't in love with dressage at the time, but I did riding jester. I got to ride all that sort of stuff. I mean, I was only tiny on him, which hopefully I can find some photos, but yeah, I was only tiny on him, but I did get to have a taste of it. So that was really nice, and then I moved from there to another riding school which was similar to Nara, with a dressage rider. So she's a dressage rider herself, but she used to be an eventer, so had all the ponies and we could jump and do all of that sort of stuff, which at that point I was really still wanting to do. I didn't want to just train straight dressage. And so yeah, we rode there. For me and my sister were riding at that point, and so we rode there until I was about 11 and a half. And then from when I was 11 and a half until I was basically 12 or 12 and a half, I had a break from riding. So we kind of struggled to, where we were riding, she kept the riding school going, but she'd relocated. So that was a long way away from us, then, and there wasn't really anywhere else local, and so I would have a sit on a few friends' horses and things, but I wasn't really riding, and I did some other stuff, started playing tennis, like that sort of stuff. I was still horse obsessed, but there just wasn't really anywhere suitable for us to ride, and I wasn't allowed a horse. So yeah, I had a break, and then we had a very close friend pass away. at the end of 2000 or in the middle of 2012. And after we lost her, I just wanted to get back into horses, and I wanted to be riding, and I wanted to have the horses. And so I decided, no, I'm going to find somewhere that I can ride, find someone that wants their horses ridden or something, and I'm going to go and ride. And so I researched as many riding schools as I could, and there was nowhere suitable. And then I had said to Mum a couple of days beforehand that, would we be allowed to lease a horse? And she said no, because then you're paying the bills for someone else's horse, which, it is true, because effectively you are. But I was 13 and I didn't want to hear that. I just wanted a pony or a horse. And so anyway, I saw this advert come up on My Oz Horse, which, if you're in Australia, you know what I'm talking about. And it was an advert for a 16-year-old standard bred who was at, about 15 hands. And he just needed the girl, Jade, who had him, was doing year 10 or year 11, and she had another horse who was her competition horse, and so she just needed somebody to keep Storm in work. And so I was like, brilliant, this is perfect, this is what I wanted, a horse that I can ride, but, we'd have to pay for it. And they'd said on there that a lease may be considered down the track. But at this point, it was just riding him to keep him in work, not for money in return, but I get to ride and they get to keep him in work, basically. So anyway, went out the next day and we saw Storm, and I managed to fit into all my old riding stuff that we hadn't, bought new. So I managed to get into all of that. We went and saw Stormy. It was the 10th of November, 2012. So 10, 11, 12. And we went and saw him, and he'd been in his yard all day because they'd been cutting hay. So I remember getting there and Julie saying, oh, he's been locked up all day because we've been cutting hay, so not sure what he'll be like. Anyway, Jade got him out. We started him on the lunge, so I was riding him on the lunge, and he did nothing. He was fine. And so Jade said, all right, well, I'll let you go. You go and do it yourself. So I had a ride around on him, and he had his head in the air, like we were just plodding around in the trot. He didn't canter, and I was just having having a ball. And so anyway, I just loved him. I was just riding again, and he was a $1 million horse in my eyes. So anyway, as we were driving out, Mum said, oh, what did you think of him? And I said, oh, I love him. I think he's great. Can I keep riding him? And she said, well, we've been offered a lease if we'd be interested in leasing him. And I was like, oh my God, already, I didn't think that's what it was, oh my goodness. And we were meant to be getting a above ground pool that year for Christmas, and so I was told then that it was either the pool or Storm, leasing Storm. But so then I had to convince my sister to not get the pool and let me have Storm. So we got home, we had to speak to Dad, who of course didn't want me to have him, and then he thought, oh, okay, we'll come around. So anyway, I was desperate to go and see him again, and Mum and Dad had said, no, you've got to wait until early next week, because you can't look too keen, so go early next week. So anyway, I had to wait till Tuesday to go and see him again. So that was a whole 3 days, which was the end of the world. So anyway, I went and saw him on the Tuesday, which is where these photos are from, and had another ride on him and was just loving it. He was nowhere near competition ready. Oh, and Julie had said when we first met them the first time, she said, oh, you can take him out to competitions if you like. And I remember looking at Mum and just thinking, oh my God, I have my own horse that I can take to a competition. This was just my dream coming true. And I knew nothing about competitions. I mean, God, what he looks like in those photos, my goodness, but I knew nothing, and I thought he was just the bee's knees, which he still is. And so anyway, I continued riding him. I was in year 7 at this point. So I graduated primary school. I got to go and see him every Saturday and every Tuesday. So I had to wait. and I only got to see him twice a week, but it was always the highlight of my week. And it was like the end of May of 2013, so my first year in year 8, that Julie rang us one night, and Mum came into my room and she was crying, and I was like, oh my God, what's happened? And she said, I've just gotten off the phone with Julie, and I thought something was seriously wrong, with him. And she had said they've asked if we'd like to take him. And that was a big deal because Storm was Jade's first horse, and he was the horse that they'd said they were never going to sell. And he was always gonna stay, and he was the one that they'd never sell because of what he'd taught Jade and how much he meant to them. And so the fact that they had asked us if we would like to take Storm was a huge deal, because we knew how much he meant to them, but they also saw how much he meant to me and how much I meant to him. And then I'll cry, but they had said, yeah, that they'd never seen a bond quite like what me and Storm had, and basically to keep us apart, where he was happiest when he was with me. So if we could take him and have him somewhere suitable, they would be happy for us to take him. So I couldn't believe it. And there was a paddock down the road, about 2.5 minutes walk, or not even, down the road from us where we were living, because we didn't have land. That had a little shed that was fitted out with cattle yards, rubber-lined cattle yards, as like a mini stable sort of thing, and a flat area that had been cut out as a grass arena sort of thing, and a paddock. So we're like, oh my God, we can keep him up the road. So we went and contacted the owners of the paddock and arranged a deal that we could keep Storm there. So it was like the 1st of June, I believe, 2013, that we had to go and get Storm after my netball game. And we had to do it that morning when Jade wasn't there, when Jade was at netball, because she couldn't be there when we took him, because it was going to be too hard for her. And so we had to go and kidnap him, basically. And anyway, he came back, and he's been with us ever since. So yeah, we continued riding throughout the year. I was starting to want to compete. I still hadn't competed him, but I was starting to want to compete him, and he was still, wouldn't ride on the bit, and he didn't bend, and he didn't canter or anything like that yet. But I wanted to go and do some shows. And then in 2013, in September of 2013, was when I got sick, which is a video I can make another time if anyone is interested about my disability and what it means for riding and everything. But yeah, I got sick on the 13th of September 2013, and basically then was when our lives changed, and having that horse by my side through all of it, I wouldn't have made him without him. So to have him, and it was all just meant to be. The fact that we had him, and he was at home with us, and yeah. So anyway, I got weaker and weaker, and I wanted to start jumping him just before I got sick, and unfortunately we never got that opportunity. I've taken him over little jumps and things, but I never got to. We were going to take him to freshmen's competitions and stuff, and I never got the opportunity, sadly. But yeah, so we started doing a couple of little breed shows and things like that. Anyway, pretty much that progressed. We continued doing breed shows. I started learning more about how to work horses and how to actually start to get him thinking about stretching and working towards being in an outline, and then later on a frame and everything. So we went to a few shows, and then it was 2015. So we'd gone through a couple of coaches since, and people struggled with, I was by then partially paralysed, I still am, on my right side, and so we'd gone through a couple of coaches in that period from 2013 to 2015. We'd gone through a couple of coaches where people couldn't quite help me with my leg. They didn't quite understand the biomechanics of how to make it work without having a right leg. And so they kind of couldn't help us. And so it had meant we'd never really found someone that we clicked with. And it was October of 2015 that I had emailed Megan Jones, who, again, if you're in Australia, you'll know, but she is a Beijing silver medalist in eventing. She lives here in the Adelaide Hills. So I'd emailed Megan, and because I knew she'd coached a rider also local to us, Grace Bowman, who is a paraplegic, and she'd been to the Paralympics and the World Championships, etc. So I knew that Megan had coached Grace, and I thought, oh, well, I'll just ask Megan, see if she, has any ideas as to how she can help, because I'm similar to Grace in that it's not both legs, but one leg, and so, the aids cross over.